I've honestly dug deep. Like if you said to me 2 or 3 years ago, how deep have you been digging? I would have said probably as deep as I could go. From the very first time that we did this, I just knew that this is something that has been missing from my life and that it's something that I needed. Now, I cannot tell you what happened to my body in that session. For about 45 minutes, my entire body was convulsing. My legs were shaking, my arms were shaking, my shoulders were shaking. It was just the exact thing that I needed, which I didn't know I needed. I was actually in tears at one point. I remember laying in my bed on my laptop, and everything was just going wrong. And Greg, my partner, came in and he was like, "Babe, are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay. This is so stressful." Just fucking try. When you need help, take it. Life is always gonna life. Shit's always gonna happen in life. We don't live in a fairy tale land. I spent about 6 years in the network marketing industry where toxic positivity was a thing. And I absolutely see many of the things that I did over that period of time as a mistake and as a failure, but in turn has led to growth, has led to lessons, and has led to success. Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk with Nat. We are on series 3. And firstly, I can't quite believe we're on series 3. And secondly, this episode is so off the cuff. Like, I can't even tell you how off the cuff this episode is. I wasn't planning on recording this episode. This wasn't a thing. I've got 5 or 6 episodes already lined up for this series, which are in the process of being edited, and all the social stuff is getting done. And I thought, no, do you know what? I'm going to release an episode to kick this off on my birthday, which is today. Obviously, it's not today as I'm filming it, but it will be today when it comes out. So it's Monday, the 28th of July. That's my B-day, in case anyone wants to know. 36 years old today. 36 years young, obviously. And I thought, do you know what? Rather than go straight in with an episode with an epic guest, because I got loads of those coming up for you, I thought, no, I'm going to spend some time and just have a bit of a catch up with you guys on a personal level, because I haven't done a solo episode in ages. And also, so much has been going on, not just in terms of the podcast. I launched this podcast at the end of October last year, and we're now basically at the end of July. And it's just come such a long way. So I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about that. Talk a bit about what's going on work-wise. I've had loads of things going on career-wise, changes happening, all amazing changes, growing in the right direction, but definitely have made some changes over these last few months. And I'm going to be continuing to make some changes over the next few months. And yeah, there's just basically loads of stuff going on. So I thought, right, what better time to catch up with you guys other than on my birthday as I enter a new year and kick off a brand new series. So let's get started on just a little bit of an update of the podcast. So like I said, I launched this podcast back in October last year. As I've said to you guys before many times, especially if you follow me on Instagram, I often talk about the importance of just acting on intuition and acting upon inspiration. I have an ongoing joke with a really good friend of mine who she's like a marketing queen, and she's always all about the strategy and all about the planning ahead and all of that stuff. And whilst I absolutely do that for the majority of my work, I absolutely do that. But I also have big elements of my work and everything that I do and everything that I show up for, such as recording this podcast today, where when it feels right to do something, I just get up and I just do it. There's no thinking about it. There's no umming and ahhing about it. There's no, let's wait and see. If something feels good and I'm in a high frequency and I'm feeling aligned to do that thing, I will literally get up and I will just do it, which is why I'm recording this episode today, which was not planned. So starting this podcast was also one of those things. Now, if you've been listening or watching since the very, very start, you will have known that in the very, very first episode, I mentioned that I actually have gone to start a podcast. This was the third time. When I launched this podcast properly, it was the third launch of a podcast. I've gone to do it twice before over the last 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years. And I got as far both times as coming up with a name for it, coming up with the logo, posting it on social media, doing the whole coming soon thing. And then something just did not feel right those last couple of times. So I just left it. I parked it. Because again, if something doesn't feel right, I won't do it. And sometimes it takes you to get to a certain point for you to realize, actually, no, I thought I wanted to do that, but something doesn't feel quite right. So it's not a bad thing that you hold off. If it's not feeling 100% aligned with you, there's always a good reason to not do it. But those last 2 times, which I went to start the podcast, something just did not feel right. So I didn't do it. And I'm so glad I didn't do it, because then when I went to launch my actual podcast back in October last year, so 2024, it felt so right. And to be fair, the themes that I've got for this podcast, this podcast is all about mindset, personal development, transformation, real honest conversations, just your real normal people who go through shit basically and have come out the other end. And this is such a huge, huge topic, which I'm so happy to be able to share with you guys, because there are so many people that go through so many things on a day-to-day basis. And, it just doesn't get spoken about. And even if you do speak about it, you often feel like you're the only person that's going through that thing. So I just really wanted to provide a platform to just let everyone know, to let the listeners know, to let my audience know that, you might be going through something, or maybe you've come out the other end of something, and there could be someone else, if not loads of other people, who have experienced those same things as you, and have come out the other end and are now thriving because they've been through such a huge transformation. When I look back at when I was initially planning my podcast all those years ago, that wasn't the route I was going down. Despite I had already started my personal development journey. I was probably about 5 or 6 years into it, actually, by that point, when I thought about doing a podcast. But I remember my initial podcast thought was like, okay, I want it to just be, it was going to be called Podcast and Chill. Like, I do still think that's quite a cool name, to be fair, but that's not really serving people, and that's not really coming with the intention of helping people. Whereas this podcast really, really does feel like that. And, obviously we're going to have conversations on this podcast, and have had conversations, which don't have to be so in depth and so deep all of the time. Like, I always want to keep it light and a bit of humor and all of that as well, but with the purpose of helping people. Like, it's just so important to me. And this is actually a massive topic, which has become really, really, really big and very much at the forefront of my mind over the last few years specifically, but really specifically over this last kind of 6 months or so. And this is what I'm talking about when I was saying at the start of this episode that I've definitely been going through some kind of changes in terms of where I'm at in my career and what I want to be doing and where I want to be going. And I put a post out on my Instagram just last week, actually, and I was talking all about your why and the importance of recognizing that your why probably should be changing if you're growing. Now, I did say this before, and I'll say it again. This obviously doesn't apply to everyone. Not everyone is the same. Not everyone has the same things that they want to be doing or feeling or experiencing and all of that stuff. And I'm totally aware of that. And I'm totally here for that. Everyone is unique. Everyone's journey is unique, of course. But if you are growing as a person and you are doing the work on yourself, it will be very likely that things that used to turn you on, in speech marks, 5 years ago probably aren't turning you on today, because you've grown and you've leveled up and you've evolved. So if you haven't been on that journey and you haven't been doing the work on yourself, you're probably not wanting to experience anything different, because you're still the same as what you were 5 years ago. And as I said, that's fine. That's not everyone has to be on this journey of personal development and growth. However, I could not encourage it more if you want to really make the most out of this life that we're living. You know, life is about evolving, life is about changing, life is about experiencing different things. And, you know, in order to do that, you have to get a little bit uncomfortable, sometimes very uncomfortable. And you do have to just grow. You have to do the work. And I've definitely been doing the work. Like, I've been doing the work for a long time. I've been doing the work for many, many years. But I've really started doing some deeper work over the last 6 months or so. Now, this is something which I really want to speak about because I'm obviously a mindset coach. I say obviously. Hopefully you know that by now if you're following me and you're listening to this podcast. But I'm a mindset coach. I've been in the personal development space before I started coaching people. I started my own journey about 11, 12 years ago. So I've been in this space for a really long time. And obviously I'm continuing to grow every single day, like I always recommend for every single person to be doing. And as a mindset coach, I've obviously already done a lot of work to get to where I am now. You know, I've done some really, really in-depth courses. I've worked with some of the best people in the industry. I've honestly dug deep. Like if you said to me 2 or 3 years ago, how deep have you been digging in terms of your own self and your own growth? I would have said probably as deep as I could go, right? And that's not true, firstly, because you can always dig deeper. You can always dig deeper. So no matter how much work you think you've done, there's always more to be done, right? But the second thing is the work which I've started doing over the last 6 months is all about my inner physical body, and dealing with emotions and energy and my physical body rather than talking and learning and speaking and watching and listening. You know, you can have all of the therapy in the world, you can have all the coaching in the world, you can journal every single day of your life, you can watch motivating podcasts every single day of your life, you can go to uplifting motivational events every single day of your life, right? You can do all of those things, but you need to remember that every single thing that you go through in life has an effect on your physical body. It has a physical effect on your nervous system. It has a physical effect on your energy, on your emotions, on all of those things which are going on your insides. And unless you physically release that stagnant energy, that negative energy, those traumas which you've been through since you were a child. And when I say traumas, I don't mean that these have to be massive life, huge events. I absolutely have had some of them. I'm just going to put it out there. I've spoken about those experiences in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go into it now. But I've been through some shit over the last 36 years. And in that time, up until recently, I'm going to rewind a second because I have touched on this work over the last 4 or 5 years. So the work which I'm talking about now is your things like your breath work, your Reiki, energy healing, sound baths, you know, that kind of level of energy healing. Now, over the last 5 or 6 years, I have dipped my feet into those things. And when I say dip my feet in, I mean, I've gone to group sound bath sessions. I've done basic breath work when I've been on online courses, and, you know, I've tapped into it and I've done a little bit. But back in November last year, I committed to doing one-to-one breath work with an insane breathwork coach who also happens to be one of my best friends. Her name is Rachel Ross Smith, and I'm definitely going to get her on the podcast at some point soon. So watch this space for that, because she's just next level in terms of her skill and just as a person. Anyway, we started working together at the end of last year. And since then, I don't think we've missed a single session. There might have been one where we haven't done it consistently. But every 2 weeks, I have a 2-hour breathwork session with Rachel. And from the very first time that we did this, I just knew that this is something that has been missing from my life and that it's something that I needed. And I'll talk to you about what happened in that first session and like the journey of how that's been as this episode goes on. But I just want to rewind for a minute and just say to you that when you're getting a feeling that you need to do something, like I said at the start, when you have that feeling of acting on inspiration or that your intuition is telling you to do something, it is so important to listen to it. Now, when you're in that space of alignment, things just present themselves to you. It's just what happens, right? But you have to be in alignment. So you have to be feeling the same way as what you want to receive. You have to be on that same frequency. Now, before Rachel actually contacted me, because this is what happened, right? So towards the end of last year, I'm probably thinking it must have been about September time. Yeah, it must have been about September. I remember just having a thought and being like, do you know what? I really need to invest in a coach again. It's time to invest in another coach. Like, I've had a variety of coaches over the years. I'm always doing something. Like, I'm always learning. I'm always doing something to level myself up. But I wasn't sure what it was that I wanted. I wasn't sure what I needed. And I'd been looking out like on Instagram and doing my research on, different courses, things related to business, things related to, things related to wellness, like all different things. And nothing was coming to mind. And like nothing was standing out to me. And I was just a bit like, I know I need to be doing something. I know I need to level up somehow, because I hadn't invested in a coach for about 6 or 7 months. And that for me is too long. Like, I need to be on it. Like, there needs to be more. And yeah, I just wasn't finding anything or anyone that was standing out to me. Like, in the past, I've come across different people, or people have recommended people to me where I've just been like, yes, this is exactly what I need right now. And I wasn't getting that feeling. So because I wasn't getting that feeling, I obviously didn't invest in anything. I didn't sign up to anything. I just kind of left it. So that was around September. And then in October, she reached out to me. She just sent me a message. Rachel actually used to live in London. That's how we ended up meeting. But she's moved back to Scotland. And I knew that she'd been on a journey herself in terms of her career and making some changes in what she was doing. And anyway, so she sent me a message and she just said, Nat, I'm starting this new journey. I'm becoming a breathwork practitioner. She obviously went into a little bit more detail. She was like, I was just wondering if you'd be opening to having 2 trial sessions. I think it was 2. So either 2 or 3 trial sessions for me to practice before I can complete and get my certificate and start coaching properly. And I was like, oh my God, absolutely. Like, I've always been here for this kind of work, despite me not doing it regularly. I've always been here for it, and it's always been something which appeals to me. So I obviously said yes. So we had our first breathwork session, which was in the November. Now, I cannot tell you what happened to my body in that session. So I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of everything that goes on in the sessions, because that's not my job to do that or my place to do that. I will let Rachel explain that in a bit more detail, obviously, when I do get her on the podcast. But just to give you the gist of it, you practice breathing in certain ways. So you do your breath work and you do what is called activated breath work. So you've got your restorative breath work and your activated breath work. Now, restorative breath work is when you breathe in through the nose and then you breathe in and then you breathe out through the nose or the mouth. And it's a much kind of calmer state of breathing. And then you've got the activated breath work where you breathe in through the mouth and you breathe out through the mouth. And it's a bit more intense. And what that does is it gets things going basically in your body. It gets your nervous system moving in ways which it wouldn't normally be doing, which then taps in to energy, which has been stored in certain places over the years. I'm giving a really basic lowdown here, guys, by the way. But it's basically tapping in to energy which has been stored inside of your body. So I had this first session, and for about 45 minutes, I'm not joking, pretty much non-stop, my entire body was convulsing. My whole body was shaking. My legs were shaking, my arms were shaking, my shoulders were shaking. There are different methods which Rachel gives you when you're doing your session. So for example, if my if you're listening to me and not watching me, you're going to think, why is she going all shaky? But it's because I'm showing you what happened. Like when my shoulders were going like that, you're encouraged to do tapping. So I was tapping down on my shoulders to have to like try and get them to stop shaking. Anyway, this went on for like 45 minutes. And it was a really, really, really intense experience. There was a lot of tears that came up. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of like, it was just a lot. And at the start of the session, Rachel actually said to me, she was like, you know, if it gets too much, just raise your hand. We do our sessions over Zoom, by the way, because obviously she's in Scotland and I'm not. She was like, if it gets too much, just raise your hand. So it almost got to the point where I was about to raise my hand, but luckily, obviously, Rachel can see exactly what's happening through the screen. And yeah, she could see what was happening. She was guiding me through it. Anyway, eventually, my body stopped. I'd obviously released a load of shit that needed to come out. And my body stopped. And then we went back into the restorative breathing. Anyway, I'm not going to go on and on and on about that. But basically, it was like a really, really intense experience. And I've been having those sessions every 2 weeks since. All of the sessions have been different. There's been a lot of much more relaxing sessions. There's been a lot of sessions where visually things have come through. I recently had a session where it was almost like I was downloading a load of information regarding business stuff. And it literally gave me a whole forecast of what I want my business to look like moving forward. Like it was just insane. Like, the experiences that I've been through since having this breath work has just been next level. And to summarize, it's been amazing. But the reason I'm sharing that is because Rachel approached me so I could help her out. Obviously, it would be helping me out as well, because obviously something like this was going to be beneficial. But it was just the exact thing that I needed, which I didn't know I needed. And that is what happens when you're in alignment with your purpose and with what it is that you're striving for and what it is that you want in the world. I knew that I needed something. I wasn't sure exactly what I needed, but I knew that I needed to wait until something felt right. I was obviously doing my best, like I do every day, to remain in a high frequency and a high vibration, to just, be in that good state of mind, because that's when you can attract the things that you truly want and that you need. And here comes Rachel. She popped up, she did that. And honestly, doing the breathwork sessions has just been absolutely incredible. So that all started at the end of last year, and that's been going through all the way through to now. Anyway, I can't really remember why I even went into all of that, to be honest, but here we are. And I know, I was telling you about the journey of my podcast. So anyway, so I started the podcast back in October. And honestly, guys, like, I actually laugh at myself because I genuinely thought I could do this on my own. If you look back at the first few episodes, I had no one editing it. Now I work with the incredible Carl, who does all my editing. He films my episodes. Obviously, he's not filming this one because I'm at home. But he films my episodes. He does the editing for YouTube, gets all my audios together. He helps with my social stuff as well. Like, he puts all the clips together of the episode for me. And if you look back at my first few episodes, I think it was all the way up until episode 5, I think it was episode 1 to 5. And then, he started at episode 6 of series 1. So the first 5 episodes, I just did on my own, on my camera. Didn't even have mics that worked for the first couple of episodes. I was just winging it. But I really wanted to just try. And that is one thing that I do actually pride myself on. And this is something which I think is a great trait for anybody to have. Just fucking try, try. Because if you don't try, you don't know. And obviously my episodes are so much better now in terms of quality and all the stuff that I'm putting out there. But, if I hadn't have tried those first few episodes on my own, I wouldn't have learned a load of stuff, which I did learn. Like, I've never edited a full video before. Yes, I've done social media work before, and I've done your bits of marketing and all of that. But to edit a whole episode, I set up all my podcast stuff on my own. I set up the feed thing. I don't even know what it's called. There's something RS feed. Guys, I don't even know. I've just made that up. There's something feed where you upload your podcast onto, and then it sends it out to all the different platforms that you're posting it on. I set all that up myself, set it up on my Spotify, on my YouTube, did all my YouTube channel and all that on my own. I did a lot of it on my own, which I'm really, really proud of. But the main thing for me was just, it was so time consuming. And I remember the first episode that I recorded, which I put out to you guys, I think I edited it 4 times. It was either 3 or 4 times. I had to edit the whole thing 3 or 4 times from start to finish. And I was getting so stressed out. I was actually in tears at one point. Like, genuinely. I remember laying in my bed on my laptop, and everything was just going wrong. And Greg, my partner, came in and he was like, "Babe, are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay. This is so stressful." And I rarely get wound up like that, but I was getting so wound up. Anyway, that was episode 1. Still didn't stop me. Went on to do episode 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then during that time, Carl actually reached out to me. He had just started his own business. And he dropped me a message and he just said, "Look, I've seen that you're doing your podcast. I'd love to help you." And I was like, "Do you know what? Yes, I need help. Please help me. Thank you." And that's another thing I just want to touch on as well. When you need help, take it. There's always going to be someone who's better at you at many different things, right? You're going to have your things which you strive at. You're going to have your things which you're brilliant at, which you're, all your strengths and all of that. You're going to have so many things which you can just be like, "Yeah, do you know what? I'm confident at that. I'm good at that. I smash that when I do it." But you're also going to have things which you're not so good at, which it would be just easier if someone else who has got that expertise and who has got that as one of their strengths can do it for you. So here comes Carl, and he just changed the game for me, and it just made my life so much easier first and foremost, because I was able to concentrate on getting the guests, on delivering the best content, on making sure that, the people that I have on the podcast are the right people, and leave the editing and leave that to someone who's doing that as their profession, which is what I did. And yeah, haven't looked back. And yeah, investing in Carl is definitely one of the highlights of the podcast so far. So Carl, if you're watching this, which you will be, because I'm going to send this to you so that you can work some magic on it. Thank you, because yeah, you've really, really helped me grow the podcast. And yeah, I don't think it wouldn't be where it is today without your help and all of your expertise and your knowledge on all that stuff. So thank you. So yeah, shout out to Carl, because yeah, he's definitely helped a lot with this podcast, which I'm so, so, so grateful for. And one thing I want to say about my episodes as well, I've had quite a few people reach out to me who want to come onto the podcast, which is amazing. And I love that. And I will have as many people on here as I can. However, I've got quite strict criteria on my guests, and you'll probably know that from who I have on here. Now, because this podcast is all about transformation and growth and, showing people positive change, anyone that does come on the podcast has been through that journey and they've come out the other side, which is how I can relate to this and my story as well. As I said in my first episode on that story, if you've not watched it, go rewind to series 1, episode 1. But if you listen to that, you'll understand how I've really kind of been through some horrendous times and got myself out of it. And that's such an important factor of life. Life is always going to life. Shit's always going to happen in life. We don't live in a fairy tale land. We don't live with rainbows and unicorns every day, right? Shit happens in life. And if this podcast can give you stories, which will in turn give you the tools and knowledge that are going to help you get through the shit and come out the other side, that is what I'm doing this for, right? In this world of mindset, of positivity, especially in this day and age with so much toxic positivity as well, which I've spoken about in a couple of previous episodes, but there really is so much toxic positivity out there. And I spent quite a long time in the network marketing industry, which I've not really spoken about too much, by the way, for various reasons, but I'm definitely going to share some bits and bobs, and I'll start now. I spent about 6 years in the network marketing industry, where toxic positivity was a thing. Like, it was a thing. Hustle culture was a thing, and toxic positivity was a thing. And I wasn't aware that either of those were things during that time, because I was so wrapped up in it. And I am going to use the word brainwashed, because it is something that when I look back at, I cannot relate to that person who I was anymore so badly that I'm like, I was brainwashed. Like, I genuinely feel I was brainwashed. And this may ruffle some feathers if people are listening to this, but I don't care. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. Do you know what I mean? So I have been a part of that for a long period of time, where I definitely felt like I wasn't allowed to be upset. I wasn't allowed to be negative about anything. I wasn't allowed to be angry at anything. If anyone came to me with anything negative, I was told to push that person away. Like, it was just really fucking bad. Like, when I look back at it, I'm just looking at my screen as I said that, and I saw 11:11. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, it was just really bad. And I'm so grateful for the experience, because I'm so grateful for the experience for a variety of reasons. I'm grateful for the experience for the people that I met on that journey. Some of them are my closest friends still to this day. I'm grateful for that experience because it introduced me to personal development. So without doing that, maybe I wouldn't be what I'm doing. Maybe I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. However, I do believe you will always do what you're supposed to be doing, whichever form or package that comes in. But it introduced me to personal development. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm just grateful for knowing how I don't want to be anymore. You know, they say the biggest way to learn lessons in life is through mistakes and through failures. And I absolutely see many of the things that I did over that period of time as a mistake and as a failure. But in turn, has led to growth, has led to lessons, and has led to success. So I'm grateful for it for that reason. But the reason I was just mentioning that was just because toxic positivity is still massively out there. I do think that the world is getting better. Social media is getting better at, you know, being honest with people and letting people know that, you know what, no, there is space to feel sad. You should acknowledge those feelings. You should address those feelings. Definitely think it's getting better at that. You know, toxic positivity is absolutely still a thing. And I just think the more people who can be open about the stuff that they're going through, and who can really get into the, you know, the ins and outs of what they went through and how they overcame those things, then that's only a great thing. So that's why I'm so kind of strict on the guests which I have on the podcast when we're going into those themes, because it's so important for me that the energy that is coming out of this screen, if you're watching or if you're listening, you know, whatever device you're listening on, energy is going to be coming out of this episode and these episodes. And it's just so important that that energy is where it needs to be. And it's not coming from a dark, negative place. It's coming from a place of, no, do you know what? I've been through that and I fucking made it through. A positive place, right? A place of honesty, a place of vulnerability, and in turn, a positive place in terms of energy. Like, that's so, so, so important. Anyway, so enough about the podcast. I'm just going to give you a little update on other things which have been going on in my life recently. So actually, first, I'm going to tell you about an event which I've got coming up, which I'm super excited about. So on Monday, the 4th of August, I've actually teamed up with Iconic PR. And we are hosting a Master Yourself. It's called the Master Yourself Live Personal Development Experience. Now, this is going to be epic. It's taking place in London. So Monday, the 4th of August in London. It's at Cavendish Venues, which is right by Oxford Circus. So a really easy location to get to. It's an all-day event. So 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Breakfast is included, lunch is included, refreshments throughout the day. And we have got 6 epic guest speakers who are coming from the mindset space. So 6 speakers, all talking about specific themes, which I have specifically chosen. And I've really picked these people for a reason. And when you're there and you hear them speak, you'll understand why I've picked those people. But these speakers are going to be talking about themes which are related to my 12-week Master Yourself online personal development program. So that's a program which I have out at the moment. As I've just said, it's a 12-week online program. In my opinion, it's the ultimate personal development program, which you can do from home in your own time. You have 12 different modules, you have worksheets, you have homework, you have recorded coaching videos from myself for each module. Some modules have more than one video, some have up to 3 different videos, depending on how big the theme is and how much of the topic I'm going into. But all of the themes which I cover are themes which I believe to be essential when it comes to leveling up in your life. So you've got your things like yourself, self-awareness, self-image, self-worth, self-love. You've got your money mindset, you've got relationships, you've got boundaries, you've got goal setting. There are so many epic modules on that program, which I just know, well, I have evidence from myself doing the work and from my clients doing the work that they are life-changing. And this event is based around that whole theme. But rather than just focusing in on the mindset and on that leveling up vibe, which it absolutely is, I'm also bringing sound sessions. A wonderful guy called Jeff, who I met here in Bedford. He's a sound bath practitioner. He's a sound healer. He's also expanding his knowledge and his skills at the moment. So he's going to be bringing some extra bits and bobs into the event, which I am buzzing about because I know it's going to be amazing. So in between the 6 guest speakers, you're also going to have live integration sessions from Jeff, who's going to be live on stage, providing sound bath, sound healing, energetic healing. It's just going to be absolutely epic. And the reason why I wanted to bring that into it as well is because of the work which I've done on myself, which I was speaking about, you know, how I've introduced breath work on a regular basis, and this whole really getting into your energy and your emotion and your physical body. It's just become so clear to me over this last 6 months that it's just so important to have a mixture of both your masculine and your feminine energy. And by masculine energy, I mean things like your goal setting, your purpose, your focus, your, you know, that feeling of being driven, of being motivated, of being consistent, showing up no matter what, like that energy, right? That is your masculine energy. And the thought processes of let's get uncomfortable, you know, we got to get uncomfortable to grow, like all those things which I massively believe in and massively follow, right? That is your masculine energy. But then you've also got your feminine energy, which is something which I've always struggled, if I'm honest, I've struggled to bring to the forefront because naturally I have more of a masculine energy. I've got a bit more of that kind of alpha female energy, which is great when it comes to business, when it comes to success, and when it comes to all of those things, that's great. However, when it comes to, even in business, it's still super important to have a mixture of your masculine and your feminine. But when it comes to your more personal life and when it comes to relationships and, you know, just really succeeding and kind of getting the best out of everything that you want in your life and really achieving those goals, you have to have a mixture of the masculine and the feminine energy. And your feminine is the way that you step into a flow, you know, you flow with that energy, you surrender, you look into the emotion, you express yourself. Your feminine energy is also around all your creativity, you know, the things that you're creating. I said not long ago when I was having my last breathwork session, I had this download of this is what you should do, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. Like that creativity really crept up just during that one session. But that's when I was in a state of flow. That's when I was in a state of surrender. I was literally laying on the floor doing my breath work, and all this stuff came to me. You know, I wasn't sat there with a pen and a paper doing a spider diagram. I was sat there breathing and allowing things to come in. Things like collaboration and community and all of that is around your feminine energy. And then, of course, the energetic healing is based on that as well. So I really, really wanted a mixture of your mindset speakers who are going to be bringing that oomph, and the feminine energy, which is going to come from this sound healing and the energetic healing processes, which are just going to allow the people that are there, it's going to allow the audience to just get grounded and to really just make the most of taking in what they've heard and just integrating things in between the sessions, which I'm super, super, super excited about. I just think it's going to be so special. We've also got a marketplace as well. So we've got some of my favorite wellness brands who are going to be there showcasing their products. You'll be able to try the products on the day, buy the products on the day. Yeah, it's just going to be a really, really great all-round experience, and I cannot wait. So make sure you get your tickets. I'll put the link in the comments below, and it's also all over my social media as well at the moment, so you can find everything on there if you do want to come. But I am super buzzing for that. It's going to be epic. I'm also trying to think if I've spoken to you guys since I did High Rocks. Have I? Yes, I did. Oh my god, guys, I did a whole episode on High Rocks. Am I okay? Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. That is funny. I did a whole episode with Georgia and Ilona on High Rocks. So let's rewind to that. That was, I'm not going to go through my whole High Rocks experience because I obviously spoke about that in that episode with Georgia and Ilona. If you haven't watched that, please make sure you do, because it's a really powerful episode. But since High Rocks, I've been continuing with my own fitness journey. Now, I'm not sure if I told you guys, I don't think I did, but before High Rocks, I had kind of fallen out of love with the gym, which is quite funny considering I'm a personal trainer, even though I'm not actively personal training at the moment. I am a personal trainer, and I've been in the wellness space for however many years, 7-8 years. But I felt out of love of being on the gym floor. I was very much in my reformer era. I was loving reformer, and I was doing reformer regularly, going for my walks regularly, doing all that stuff. But when it came to the gym and just going to the gym and lifting weights, I don't mean like heavy weightlifting. I've never really been that into that. It doesn't really give me that much joy. But doing my weights, doing my cardio, doing my conditioning, my strength work, all of that, I had just fallen out of love with it. And High Rocks made me fall back in love with it. So grateful for that, because I needed to get back in there. Like when I am on that gym floor and when I'm training hard, I'm at my best. Like I feel my best. So I'm so grateful that I've got back to that place. Anyway, so High Rocks, obviously did High Rocks, tick that box. Will I do it again? I keep going through ups and downs right now, probably not, but who knows. Boxes ticked, and I went back to training with Jordan, who's my PT. He's over at Studio 281. He got me prepared for High Rocks, and he was like, right, okay, so what are your goals? What are your goals now? You know, we've obviously done High Rocks, like what do you want to focus on? And I think it's so important to always ask that question. Whether you're working with somebody or you're on your own, like you always should have a focus, a goal of some sort. It doesn't have to be a massive goal, but a goal is so important. And I just said to him, I was like, to be honest, I don't really have like an aesthetic goal, to be honest, at the moment. That's not really a priority for me. There's nothing specific I want to train for, but my goal is absolutely to just get stronger and just feel my best. And that's what I've been doing. I've been doing my PT sessions 3 times a week, pretty much every week. We do a mixture. We do 2 strength sessions and we do 1 conditioning session. I've been doing my daily steps, although I was slacking a little bit, I'm not going to lie, over the last month or so with my steps. I was not getting my steps in how I should have been. And that I annoyed myself with that, because I could have done better with that. You know, when you look back and you think, yeah, you really didn't need to slack on that, to be honest, hon, but you did. That's where I was at with that. However, I have definitely picked it back up. Jordan's actually away this week on holiday as I'm filming this, and he has given myself and Julia over at the studio the challenge of hitting 15,000 steps a day. 15,000. That's quite a lot. I normally aim for 10 to 12, but he's given us 15. And I was like, do you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. So yesterday was day one and I hit nearly 16,000. We're on day two today and I'm on 7,310 so far, which isn't bad, to be honest, considering I'm off to London this afternoon and I'm going to get a shit ton of steps in when I'm in London. So that's great. I'm going to smash it today. But I've just been really enjoying my gym life again. And it just feels really, really, really nice to be back at that place. I felt a little bit kind of lost with all of it over the last kind of year or so in terms of the gym. You know, I used to be so on it, so on it. And when I lived on my own, like when I was still living in London, I've spoken about this before, but when you're on your own and you're single, your routine is just a different ball game. Like you can literally do what you want, when you want, wherever you want. Like you really, really, really can, especially if you're your own boss and you're a business owner, right? And that's what I was doing when I was in London. Where I lived, I was about a 25-minute walk away from David Lloyd, which was my gym when I was there. And, you know, I would just walk there every morning. I would take my laptop. I would go get a really, really good workout in, like hour and a half workout. And then I'd spend the rest of the day there on my laptop doing business. Go home and that was that, and repeat. You know, I would literally do that 4 or 5 days a week. And I was in such a routine with it. But obviously when you meet somebody, when you move, you know, I now don't live alone, like I've spoken about in previous episodes. I don't live alone. I live with my partner. We have my stepson the majority of the time. Like it's just a different life. And I love every minute of it. Like there's nothing I would change. I love it, but it's just, you have to adapt your routine. And these things take time sometimes. When you're so used to certain ways and you're so used to doing things in a certain way on your own, when other things and other people and other situations come into the mix, it takes time to just figure it all out. And I feel like I'm at a good place with that. And it's taken me a few years. I've been in bed for nearly 3 years and it's taken me until now to really feel like I'm back in the flow of things. And then who knows what's to happen in the future, right? Something else will change, something else will happen where you've then got to just switch to a slightly different direction, and that's fine as well. But yeah, to summarize, I'm just feeling really good with my training and I thought I would share that. Anyway, guys, I could be here all day talking to you, but I was planning for this episode to be a short and sweet one, and I feel like I'm already going over the time limit that I set myself, but I'm so glad that I did this random episode. Hopefully you've taken some nuggets from it and hopefully it has kept you entertained, however that may be. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that is listening or watching, wherever it is that you're tuned in from. The growth of this podcast has been insane. I'm actually going to just check the stats now because I haven't looked at it for a couple of weeks. Let me just go onto my YouTube. Let's have a look. Yeah, so YouTube is on 5.3k subscribers. Guys, that's mental. Honestly, I'm so grateful. And some of the views that I've had on these episodes, like thousands. And it's just dropped my phone. Honestly, I'm just so grateful. So thank you guys so much. Please do keep sharing. If there's any specific episodes which you loved, make sure you comment, make sure you share. Honestly, every single, I know this is so cliche, but every like, every comment, every share, all those things, every subscription, all of it makes such a difference. It just helps it reach more people. And my goal is to reach as many people as I can through these episodes, because like I said before, the stories that you're hearing on here are not just your everyday stories, right? These are life-changing stories which people need to hear, because I'm going to go as far as these stories can save people's lives as well as change people's lives. When you look back at some of the episodes which I've been through, and some of the guests I've had on and what they've been through and what they've overcome, like it's not every day that you hear stories like that. So yeah, please do keep sharing. And I will see you guys back here soon. Like I said, we've got lots of exciting guests lined up for series 3 already. And also, if there's anything specific that you guys want from me, if there's anything that you want to hear, if there's any topics you want me to speak about specifically, like anything goes over here, right? I'm here to talk about whatever, right? As long as it's real, honest chats, then I'm here for it. So as I said, please make sure you subscribe, like, all the good stuff. And I will see you guys really soon. See you soon. Bye.